Hey, what's going on, guys? Chad here with Green Light Shooting, and welcome to a new discussion video. I apologize about the lapse in videos over the last couple weeks. I've been all over the place working, but I'm finally back home and ready to make some videos. You guys really seem to be enjoying these discussion videos, and I really appreciate you letting me know that you guys like them, because that just makes me want to make more, and I enjoy making them, so I'm happy to do it. I apologize about my voice, by the way. I'm feeling pretty sick, but I promised a video, so we're going to knock out a video for you guys. Before we dive into this week's discussion video, I do want to give a special shout out to a viewer out in Sweden who picked up a couple pieces of GLS gear. Big shout out to you, man. You know who you are. I don't want to try and say your name and butcher it, but I appreciate the support on the brand. It means so much to me. If you guys dig the GLS gear thing, make sure to check us out over at glsgear.com or just click on that card right up there. So let's dive into the discussion for the week. This time we're talking about revolvers for semi-auto handguns. Which one is better? We're not talking about which one's better for beginners, which one's better for, whatever. We're just talking about what is better in general. So I think this is going to be a really good conversation. It's definitely not a black and white issue. There's a lot of gray area, and I think that's what makes for a good discussion. So if you look on some of my bigger videos, I get a lot of crap for not including revolvers in my top three. But in this video, I kind of get the chance to give you some of my opinions on both of the styles. So let's get into that. If you haven't seen the discussion videos, essentially how it works is I'm going to tell you what I think about the whole thing, give you some of my pros and cons, stuff like that, and then you down in the comments below are going to tell me whether you agree, whether you disagree, what your opinions are on it, and then everyone just kind of jumps in and replies to each other, and hopefully we get a good discussion going. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Let's dive in. Alright, so let's start on the revolver side. Let's start with pros first. So I think the first big pro that comes to mind is just the simplicity of it, the timelessness of it. This gun has been around for a very, very long time, and for good purpose. It's very simple, very easy to use, and I think regardless of whether you're a shooter or not, everyone kind of knows what a revolver looks like. Everyone's familiar with pulling a hammer back and pulling the trigger, and that's really all there is to a revolver. And I think that's one big draw that people have to it, is just how simple it is to use. Now, my next pro for the revolvers is actually in the concealed carry realm. A lot of modern revolvers come with the double and single action triggers, and I think that lends itself very well to concealed carry. So, if you're carrying a revolver, you can carry it with that double action trigger and know that it's not going to accidentally go off. You have to apply very intentional pressure to make that thing go off. And another nice thing about it is if you do have to draw it and use it, you just pull the trigger. I mean, you keep pulling the trigger. That's all there is to it. You don't have to manipulate a slide. You don't have to do anything like that. You know that all you do is pull the trigger and it's going to go bang. And another cool thing with that trigger is, the single action triggers are very, very crisp pulls, meaning that you can get great, accurate bullseye shots at the range or whatever. And it's a lot of fun. All right, so the last big pro on my list, and I think this is the big one. This is the one that everyone thinks about when they argue for revolvers, is that there are very few moving parts, which means that there is very little chance for a malfunction to happen. And I completely agree with that. I do. There's no slide rolling back, there's no ejectors, there's no, load the next round in anything. It's as simple as the cylinder's rotating when you're pulling the trigger, the hammer's coming back and forth, and it's firing the next round. So it's very, very reliable, very simple, and I think a lot of people really, really do like that about the revolvers. All right, so let's move to the con side of revolvers. And for me, the first thing that comes to mind is just capacity. You're kind of limited to that 5 to 8 round range-ish. So that's something to keep in mind. The next con in my mind is kind of related to that first one, but it's reload time. So, after you've spent those 6 rounds or whatever it is, you've got to drop that cylinder, drop out your spent shells, and either load them in one at a time, or, you got a speed loader or something like that. But still, it's a little bit slower in my mind than kind of a semi-auto reload. So next up on my cons list is just that I think ammunition's generally a little bit more expensive when you're talking revolver rounds. And then finally, this one's a little bit looser. I don't really have any hard evidence on this or anything like that, but from what I've heard, you're generally getting a little bit more recoil out of a revolver just because, it's a solid piece. You don't have that slide or anything to take up some of that recoil. So you're the one taking up all that recoil. Whether that's really noticeable on modern guns or not, it's hard to say, but it is definitely something to keep in mind. All right, so let's dive into the semi-auto side of things, get some pros going. And the first one that comes to my mind is that ammunition's a little bit cheaper. You can find it a little bit more readily available, and it's less expensive, at least for comparable rounds, which means you can shoot more often, you can practice more often. Next thing that comes to mind is at least the potential for having, a higher capacity magazine to carry more rounds. You can get, a standard full-size 9mm is going to be 17 rounds or something like that in a magazine. So you get a lot more rounds. And going along with that, another pro I think is just reload time. So you have this preloaded magazine that you can take in and out. So drop your empty mag, throw in a new one, and you've got another 17 rounds to go or whatever it is. Another pro I like about semi-autos is a lot of times you can find them with external safeties. With revolvers, you're kind of relying on that double action trigger pull as your safety. A lot of new shooters and stuff like that just feel a little bit better about having a safety switch or a grip safety or something like that. And you find those a lot more readily available on semi-auto guns. And the last pro is kind of a little one, but it's something I like. In my mind, at least, there are a lot more kind of broad options for semi-autos. There's a lot more to choose from, I guess. And then once you have chosen, there's a lot more kind of customizable options. You can really, just tinker and get these guns exactly how you like. And that's something that appeals to me. I know you can definitely customize revolvers, but it just seems that there's maybe a little more readily accessible accessories and stuff like that out there for semi-auto handguns. All right, those were the pros, so let's dive into the cons of the semi-auto. I've got three. Number one, which I think is a small one, but I will say it, is I think that in terms of cleaning and maintaining it, the semi-autos are a bit more cumbersome. With a revolver, you're essentially ready to go. Drop that cylinder, you can clean everything out real quick. When you've got the semi-auto, you do have to field strip it. You have to take it down a little bit, so it's a little bit more work. Number two on my cons list, and this is a big one, you have to manipulate a slide. So this is something that intimidates a lot of beginners. I know it intimidated me when I first started out, but it's it's just something you've got to kind of work through and figure out if you're going to shoot with semi-auto handguns. Number three, and I think this is the one that everyone kind of thinks of, is that there are a lot more moving parts in a semi-auto gun. So, every time you pull that trigger, that slide's racking back, kicking out that spent brass, loading in new rounds. And there's just a lot of things that you're counting on to go right every single time. And because of that, it does allow for kind of more options for malfunctions to happen. And because of that, like beginners can kind of get more intimidated by it, but a little bit easier and stuff like that. When you're trained, it's not a big deal. You know how to clear that malfunction and just keep on shooting. But that is something that you have to keep in mind. So those are my pros and cons of the styles there. And I think in this one, I'm still gonna have to go with semi-auto. That's not to say I don't like revolvers. I love revolvers. I think they're fantastic guns. But if I have to choose which one I like better, I'm going to go with semi-auto. Primarily, I think, because of the higher capacity, the faster reload times, and the less expensive ammunition. Those things all contribute to the fact that I can train more often, I can train faster, and those are things that really appeal to me. Those are my thoughts on it. It's a really, really kind of, I don't know, highly debated topic, so I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Make sure to leave your ideas down in the comments below. Let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, just whatever you think. Let's get a good discussion going. Thank you guys so much for watching these videos. I've been having a blast making them. I hope you guys are having a blast watching them and just kind of getting to participate in them. It's a really cool kind of community building thing, and yeah, really, really cool. So anyways, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't seen these other two discussion videos, make sure to check those out, and we'll see you on the next video for green light shooting.